Hello, and welcome to episode 149 of Random Encounter, the RPG Fan Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Heemsbergen. I am Embryonix on Twitter. That's at EMBRYONX. And we're joined by quite a few folks today. First of all, we've got veteran podcaster Robert Fenner.
Hello, it's me. I don't have anything clever to say.
You're just a stinky boy, and you're here.
The stinkiest.
Yeah, and I love that about you. We're also joined by, good. We're also joined by Nathan Lee, the premier Neptunia avatar on RPG Fan.
Hello, everyone.
Good to have you, Nathan. And also Greg Delmage is here, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
There he is. And he doesn't sound as high-pitched this time. I swear to God, last time you had like a weird modulation effect happening to your voice or something. I don't know.
I was just trying to auto-tune, just trying something fresh for the people at Podcast Land.
That makes sense. And finally, we have a new panelist joining us today. It's Gino DeGioia.
Hello, RPG fans. I'm the guy who writes the Coming This Weekend and is always on news, so it's good to finally be out of my newsroom and into talking for a change.
Yeah, we let you out of the cage.
Pretty much.
Yeah, we don't publicize this, but when people start writing at RPG Fan, we cage them usually for about 4 to 6 months. When they're good, we'll like crack a window or like feed them some table scraps, but generally
I get treats sometimes.
Shackled, yeah. So I didn't say you could talk, Greg. Right now. No, it's good to have you around. And also, apologies to the listeners in advance. I'm going to pull a Rob Steinman and talk about or warn you about something that may end up not being a problem whatsoever. Because he loved to always be like, "Apologies, I'm sick," and then he would like never cough or anything.
There's cats around. You never hear a cat, and that was probably the most disappointing ever.
Oh yeah, right. I want to hear the cat.
In common public speaking practice, you should not be saying, "Oh, apologies for this," because there's always a chance that people won't notice it.
This is true. However, it's probably going to be noticeable that you will hear a lot of hammering and/or machinery coming from my end because we've got construction happening on either side of my apartment. That's what I get for moving into a building that was actively being renovated. So if you hear a lot of noise, rest assured that won't be a usual thing just today. So today's big game, the one that we've been kind of holding off on discussing really in depth, is, as you may expect, Octopath Traveler. It's been out for, like 3 weeks now? Or
3 weeks as of tomorrow.
Just about, yeah.
Yeah, and it's the game on everybody's minds. It's what I'm seeing the most discussion for still on Twitter, on Tumblr, on Facebook, etc. And I want
to play the most.
It's so good.
Really good.
It's really good.
I'm really happy to see it so well received because it still feels like not too long ago that we were constantly hearing from publishers that America didn't care about classic turn-based RPGs. Like nobody wanted them, and it's like we've been here all along, and I just think that we had kind of a surge in like not so great JRPGs for a while, and maybe that's what happened and why interest waned and people wanted to see new and different things, and that's fine.
They were in the handheld slum and nobody was really paying as close attention as they should.
This is true, yeah. And there were a lot of
developers were slow on PS3.
What was that?
The Japanese developers were slow developing on PS3.
Yeah.
So we had masterpieces like Time and Eternity.
Ah! Oh my god, triggered. That's still, to this day, I think the worst game I've ever reviewed.
Ooh.
My lowest score too. I think I gave it like a 30 something.
Damn.
Which even was very generous because I mean it's got some great visual ideas, but oh my god, that game is important. There's the hammering I was talking about.
Just let them in, Derek.
You're just knocking.
Let them out.
No, it's no. The entire thing, that whole thing about the hammering and construction was a ruse. It's the caged RPG fan interns. They scream for release.
There was one now.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's really great to see so much enthusiasm surrounding a classically styled Japanese RPG like this, and it's not only classically styled in terms of like the core of its gameplay, but also visually. Like it's bringing this incredible fusion of that retro style RPG with like pixelated character sprites into a world with a lot of visual depth, and there's so much strategy afforded by the battle system, and you can kind of make your own adventure by choosing which characters you want to focus on. Like you could theoretically just do one character story. You could not speedrun, but because you have to grind a lot, but you could just go through one character's tale from 1 to 4 and be like, I'm done. That's all. I just wanted to solo the game. That's up to you. It'd be kind of weird, but you could do it. So since we've all gotten a chance to play Octopath over the past few weeks, I figured now was the best time to bring people on and start chatting about it. So, oh gosh, I think
Are we going to spoiler? Sorry to interrupt.
Oh,
Should we
yeah.
warn
I don't.
people?
I don't want to spoil anything story wise. So I will.
Let's keep it general then.
Yeah, consider this like a sort of spoiler warning. I'm not gonna. I don't want to talk about like the identity of the final boss or something. But
Slow boy here who hasn't even completed all the chapter ones.
yeah, right. Exactly. I guess
completed buying a Switch. So
here's my mild. I would consider this a gameplay spoiler, not a story spoiler. Okay, ready? Here it is. Is that we're going to probably bring up the fact that there is like a true ending, like an epilogue dungeon type thing, and that's about it. So it exists. There's more beyond the 8 stories, but that's all I was going to say. I don't want to talk about like what's in it. So I think besides me, the person who's played it here the furthest is Gino, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So you were even playing like as recently as 3 a.m. this morning, trying to get through that final boss section, right?
I played a half hour. I played like less than an hour ago. That was my last attempt on that end game area. So
It's
it
rough.
was, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I think it stands as a really good challenge for people who want to really push their skills to the limit and see what they can do with that battle system. But man, is that a difficulty spike.
Speaking of the battle system, actually, is something I noticed a lot with this, considering it has some staff from Bravely working on it, is that when you get towards the end game, the battle system becomes pretty broken in terms of what you can accomplish with it. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it's more like because you would think that you would straightforwardly be getting stronger by like getting more powerful direct magic spells or leveling up your characters and getting better armor and stuff. Whereas I find that my strategy towards endgame definitely became like, oh, I'm going to do things like buff this one character to make them dodge a physical attack with 100% certainty and then spread that to everybody else. Or like use items to give a character extra turns to like buff beyond what they normally would have been able to do, that kind of thing. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's one strategy in particular using Tressa, the merchant character, that relies upon using a certain subclass, and you use that subclass to, like I just mentioned, you have her apply this thing that lets her transfer her own self buffs to other people that is intended, I think, to be used with a different category of abilities, but it works on this on Sidestep, which is one of her merchant abilities. And if you can like buff her to 4 BP or whatever, she can just spread it to everybody, and then you'll suddenly have 4 instances of being able to dodge any physical attack. And there's like at least one boss in the game that only uses physical attacks. So you are 100% invulnerable if you employ that strategy against it, which is cool because it's like, hey, I figured out a smart way to beat a challenge that was in front of me. And I like that a lot. And I get what you mean about it feeling kind of like breaking the game or breaking the battle system. So I've also noticed that I guess we should probably get a little bit more general and talk about some of the earlier stages before we really go into like the end game strategy. And then now that I think about it, but
yeah.
Well, you're saying stuff about subclasses and stuff. This game has like some sort of job system sort of aspect. I'm someone who has not on purpose tried to like spoil myself too much on what the game is about and whatnot. So I'm here to kind of ask about that.
Sure. So we've talked about it a little bit on the show. I believe like 2 episodes we gave some initial thoughts about it, but just to sort of start from the beginning, Octopath Traveler, classically styled Japanese RPG that features 8 characters. Each character has their own storyline to follow and their own corresponding job class. And those job classes impart them abilities that they can use both in and out of battle. So the things for out of battle are character specific, and you can't like change those or assign them to other people. So like Haunit, the huntress, is able to provoke people in town and just basically get into fights with them and beat them. And if you defeat them, then maybe they'll like drop something rare, or you can get past them to access like a little hidden location or something. Whereas, say, Therion the Thief can steal things from people, which is incredibly useful. And I'd argue that like that ability is broken with some of the stuff you can do with it later.
As I've seen,
yeah, and steal is one of the best abilities.
Yeah, by far. So I also feel like, and Therion can also open locked chests, and he's the only character who can do that. So I feel like I always wanted to have him in my party for that reason. So anyway, you have those, and then of course you have their in-battle abilities. So like since Therion is a thief, He can do things like steal enemies' items in battle. He can absorb health or SP, which is like your magic points using a dagger attack. And those you can actually, like that sort of battle class aspect of it, you can actually assign as subclasses to all of the characters by finding these shrines around the game world. There's one corresponding to each of the 8 character classes that you start with. And the only restriction is that you can't assign more than one subclass to a character. So like only one person can be a subclass cleric, say, at a time. Gotcha. So you could have Ophelia the cleric, which is like her main class, and then somebody else subbed cleric, but only one other person.
Gotcha. So it differs from classic job systems in that way, that you can't just have everyone do the same thing.
Yeah, and I guess the wrinkle there is just that everybody is quote unquote stuck with whatever they started out as. So you know, there's still a level of like uniqueness to each character that you can't get rid of, which I like, because it encourages you to build a party around whatever their primary classes are and whatever abilities you think might complement those. Yeah, and you can do all kinds of stuff, because I found myself messing with my setup quite a few times. Like I would have Ophelia the cleric in my party and then have her sub like scholar or something. And then I was like, no, I want Cyrus the scholar in my party. So I put him in and then had somebody else sub cleric and then had Cyrus sub something else. So like you can really mix and match a lot and find some unique combinations. And for the most part, it feels pretty balanced, with the one exception is like that one ability that you can only, that sidestep like party buff, you can only do with Tressa as a certain sub job, which
yeah, so if you have to assign, like say you assign Ophelia cleric, and then you give her a warrior, can she use staffs and swords and lances?
Yeah, so they just gain access to the full ability set of both classes, including whatever weapons that class can wield. So
I found a bunch of shrines and I'm just like, I don't know if I should assign like certain classes yet, because I'm not sure exactly what this does, because I'm not sure if it cancels out what they're already on.
Yeah, no, it doesn't cancel anything. It just adds on supplementary. And the nice thing is you can switch them all at any time. There's no penalty in any way. And I find that sometimes it actually makes sense to assign a class that is pretty different from their base. Like you would think that since Ophelia is a cleric, you wouldn't want her to be a warrior because she's magically oriented. But you can sort of, because a big part of the battle system in the game is exploiting enemy weaknesses to break, quote unquote, break them, which lowers all of their defenses and stuns them for a whole turn. So I found that a lot of the time it was more important for me to have good break coverage than it was for me to have like super high powered stats. Although, I mean, you need high enough stats to do damage, but so it's viable to make Ophelia a warrior if you want to, because you can build her with equipment in such a way that like mitigates her lower stats. That being said, Ulbrich, who is a warrior base class, is probably always going to be better at melee oriented stuff than Ophelia would be, but like you can still play around with it. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, Ulbrich's stat at our close number, you can actually build him as a magic user without much of a problem, because when you get certain equipment sets, the whole thing with Octopath is that equipment pretty much plays a little bit more than levels. As with equipment, you'll be able to alter around your characters a lot more. Like with equipment, making magic-based characters is much easier compared to just making physical ones. Just to do.
It's very Saga.
Yes. So, magic's always been broken, like turn-based RPGs, anyways. So using that to your advantage is pretty simple in the long scheme of things.
Yeah. So that freedom and flexibility, I think, is a big part of what makes Octopath so engaging and why it's so well received right now, because freedom is a big element in modern gaming. Like people want to have choices. They want to be able to create their own experience, however it may be. I still tend to gravitate towards like linear narratives just because I think there's something to be said about an experience that's handcrafted to some degree, which is a discussion that I think we're going to get into with our second game on the show today. I like stories that have been written out that I get to experience, and if I can make small choices along the way, that's fine. Octopath, I think, strikes a pretty good balance because it's both a collection of pre-written, like defined narratives for each of these characters, but it's also a game that lets you choose the sort of, I think I described this, and I wrote a review for this for my other outlet. I described it as like the how, the when, and the why of and the who of your story. Like I get to decide who I want the focus of my story to be and how I want to develop them as a character and what areas I want to explore first. Like it's not so much that the game is totally, it's not like a quote unquote open world game. You can go anywhere you want in the world from the very get-go. Nowhere is locked. You can walk wherever you want to. It's probably going to be too strong for you and you'll die if you go up like to one of the high level areas, but you could theoretically just walk up there. So
that's something I've always liked about older JRPGs, you know, wandering into a place that you're not supposed to be. Like one of my fondest childhood memories was like accidentally going into the mine in Ys 1 and then just, you know, just dying. But, you know, it's still gating and it's keeping you away from there. But just, you know, the fact that you're able to see that instead of, you know, just having a guard saying, no, you're not ready to come here yet. It's
like soft gating. Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun.
At least it's not a bunch of ants saying, "Oh no, there are ants! Please don't step on us."
I think that Pokemon Psyduck blocking the way.
Like Pokemon levels of invisible wall.
Yeah, so Octopath is freeing in that way without being explicitly like an open world or non-linear narrative type game, and I think that balance is what makes it really appealing to people, kind of in our niche, especially because it's like a lot of us grew up with classic Japanese style role-playing games, and many of us want to see a return to that. And like, make no mistake, they're a dime a dozen. Like there's so many games trying to emulate that style right now, but not all of them really get what makes them so good. So
absolutely.
So I think that Octopath does an excellent job of doing that because you can both kind of have the freedom to shape your own story or play with your characters how you want while still following each of these tales in whatever order you please. So I absolutely love this damn game. I guess we could get more into some of the story, the themes and stuff.
Well, actually, I have a quick question for you.
I was going to mention something else.
Sure.
Derek, if you... so one major critique I saw of the game while looking online for a lot of certain reviews and our stuff is that the game can be very grindy. When I played through it, I didn't do any major grinding till the end game. What was your experience with level grinding and anything like that?
Yeah, I didn't have to grind until I decided to start taking on the optional bosses. So this would be, I guess, this is another gameplay spoiler. So pause here or skip ahead a minute or so if you don't want to be spoiled. I think this is minor and most people know about it, but just putting it out there. There are 4 additional jobs that you can unlock beyond the 8 starting character classes, and those are all in these little like optional shrines, and each one has an associated boss.
We wrote a news article on that.
So it's
not like that much of a spoiler, right?
Yeah, I think it's pretty well known, but just in case I wanted to say that. It's, oh my god, this hammering. So the extra character classes, those bosses are the first time that I ever really had to grind, and it turned out that I didn't need to grind as much as I just needed to adjust and adapt a very specific strategy for each one. And then the only time I really did end up grinding a bit was when I wanted to try to do the final boss gauntlet at the end. So I don't really think it's that grindy.
No, me neither.
The only time I had to grind was going from chapters 1 to 2 because the level gap from chapters 1 to 2 is like 10 levels, and you don't give high enough level enemies to really sustain through all 8 chapters. So that's the only time I had to.
Yeah. How far are you into it, Nathan?
I'm still in the middle of halfway through everyone's chapter 2s, I believe. So about like 5 or so.
Okay.
I need to move a little bit faster because I'm reviewing this game for the site.
Oh yeah. I've heard some wildly varying reports of how long it's taken people to get through the game. I think the final time on my clock when I didn't beat the final boss. I got all the way up to the final boss, died after a very long struggle and decided that I was done. But I had like 65 or so hours on my game clock. And I've heard some people saying that they have like over 80 and they're still in the early parts of the chapter 4s for each character. So
I'm anticipating being around there. I'm like 25 hours in and like middle chapter 2s.
Okay.
My final playtime was 80 hours. When I finished the last chapter 4 at 80, and I'm at 106 right now, trying to beat the true final boss as well.
Oof.
So
yeah.
But I'm used. That's what I did for Bravely Second. By the time I was done Bravely Second, I was like 114. So I'm used to playing this much time.
Yeah. So it seems like it can be longer if you want it to be, if you want to really grind and do the extra challenges, or you could probably get through it quicker, and you'll get through it way quicker if all you want to do is get through like 1 or 2 chapter 4s, and you're like, I've experienced enough. Although I feel like most people who have played the game that far will probably want to see all of them through to the end. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one thing I kind of want to critique about the story, if we're still going to be on the topic of it.
Yeah.
I don't kind of like how everyone kind of feels separate from each other. It's kind of like everyone does their own story, right? Like you can do your own story for everybody. Mm-hmm. But I don't like how no one really interacts besides party banter, and it's kind of takes me out of it when there's kind of like taking on everything by themselves, but they have everyone else behind them when they're fighting bosses or whatever.
Yeah, I think there can be a disconnect at times. Like I'm not really bothered by that so much as I'm bothered by like specific instances where it doesn't really make sense. Like Therion specifically saying, I don't trust anybody, and then walking off with 7 other people. Like if you do his chapter 1 last, it's like, okay. Or even like spaces that wouldn't probably fit 8 people. Like I guess you're taking 4 at any given time. So let's say that you have like your party of 4 in a dungeon, and you're like you end up in a dungeon, like a prison cell or something, and it's like you're trying to escape from the prison cell, and somebody has to come and help you out. And it's like, but there are 4 of us here. Like, could we have not done that ourselves, or had one of our friends come from the tavern and like pick the lock? I left Therion so he could drink. He can come help me. Like, that's the kind of thing that I think takes me out of it a little bit, because it's like, okay, even accounting for the fact that they want all the stories to remain fairly separate, that doesn't really make sense to me. But I understand your critique. I think I probably feel differently about it than you do. But yeah, I had a discussion with somebody who referred to that sort of like the interfacing between the characters is like they're acting as each other's therapists on the road, which I thought was a really interesting perspective, because it's less that you're like in a traditional party of 4 taking down all of these villains together and stuff, and more just like there are folks around you and you confide in them when you're feeling unsure, or when you have a question, or when you want to reflect or bounce something off of them. And I like that. But you're right that it's not as organic as it could be.
Yeah, they could easily work things in a little bit better.
Yeah, because make no mistake, they're definitely all 8 separate stories that aren't really intertwined. Like there are threads that connect all of them, but the moment-to-moment stuff in the stories, it's not like Tressa's, going out trying to become a merchant, and then Ulberich shows up in her chapter 2 and is like, you there. And I think they could have stood to incorporate that. For me, it's like a neutral and not a negative. Like it's nothing, I can see how it would have been better if they would have actually incorporated each character more into each other's stories. But as it is, yeah, they're just kind of in the background.
Like, it wasn't too bad like when you recruit them, because they talk to you and it's like, hey, let me tell you my story and this stuff kind of thing. But after chapter 1, it seems to disappear.
Yeah, more or less.
I actually kind of think of this more like a Western RPG, where it's the world lore that takes more of the focus rather than an actual linear story that a lot of RPGs do. So when I think about it that way and be like, oh, the focus is on the world building and the individual characters or NPCs in that regard, that's what I like seeing. And this game does a very good job building the world, building other characters, and developing them in a way where it actually works really well. And while there is no linear story outside like everyone's 8 individuals, what they do with that makes things a lot more enjoyable in the long run. Also, those travel banter have some really funny moments in them. Anyway,
yeah,
some of it's pretty funny. I like it.
It's a shame they're not more frequent, actually. I think, but maybe then I'd feel like they were too much or something if they were.
Every character has 7 with the other party members per chapter. You just need to make sure you have them in your party at that point.
Yeah, and I did not realize that was what was happening for quite a while. I was probably partway through a lot of the chapter 2s before I even realized. I think the first time I saw the icon for Travel Banter, I was like, oh, shoot, did I miss that before? And because it's like up in the top right of the screen, and it's in the like white text on the black.
They're all on YouTube, so it's not like it's. So if you miss them, you can go get them there.
That's true, but you can also. There's also some that involve 3 characters, so you either have to have those 3 in your party, or like you go to a tavern and occasionally one of your other characters will be standing in the tavern, and like if they're in there plus the people in your party, it might trigger. So.
Oh, interesting. Okay, to try that.
That doesn't occur until post game. I should mention that.
What's that?
The 3 to 4 travel banter that is included until you complete one of someone's chapter 4s.
Oh, really? Okay. I did not realize that.
Interesting.
But yeah, I suppose you could see them online if you miss any after you beat the game. I'd probably recommend at least trying to, get, because you don't want the context for events spoiled before you play the game. But yeah, good call.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, and also I think that it's good. It's well planned out. Like it feels as if all of those stories could conceivably exist in the same world without necessarily running into one another, because there's a lot of shadowy stuff happening in a couple of them that, it makes sense that like Tressa wouldn't know about the dealings of the underworld as she's out and about doing her merchanty stuff, or like Honnet's out hunting beasts in the wilderness, so she's off in some forest while Olberic's like fighting a guy in the desert. You know what I mean? So it's not like each one goes to the same town in the same order, and there's no ramifications or consequences of any of the events that happen there. It's like, okay, they're all just kind of operating independently of one another. So I do appreciate that, and I think that they touch upon some nice themes, even if none of the storylines are especially deep. Like I think they're deep.
There's some that like way better than others.
Yeah, I think like Primrose stands out early on as a character who has a much more interesting and dark.
Big tonal shift there.
Yeah. Right. To go from
Tressa, she's a happy-go-lucky go on a merchant adventure.
I'm going to be a merchant. And then Primrose is like, I'm a whore. And
I must avenge my father. Yeah.
Which, I mean,
I'm being slapped around by a big fat man who says horrible, horrible things.
Yeah.
So, towards the end, I think that each one, for the most part, wraps up all right. But I do think that they are constrained a bit by the 4-chapter format. Like, each one has a very clear arc that's easy to predict if you know where each character's story is going. Like if you can guess at their motivations or like guess at the ultimate resolution, you're probably right with how it's going to go. I wasn't shocked by any of them, I'll say that. But the moment to moment writing is good enough that it makes them all worth experiencing.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of Alphen?
I love him.
I like Alphen.
Yeah.
He's a little bit boring, but I still like him.
Alphen reminds me of a more innocent version of Kevin Graham from Trails in the Sky 3.
Wow.
That's what he reminds me of, like a more innocent version of him.
Huh, that's an interesting comparison. Maybe that's why I like him.
That there might be something to that.
So do you not like him, Robert?
No, I mean, it's weird. It's weird. I had this discussion with my friend Alva, because Alva really hates Alphen. And I don't hate Alphen, but I'm baffled. Because like the writing says to me like, okay, this person their desire is to become like a doctor without borders, to measure up to their of their deceased mother, and they put people before prophets, etc. But the voice acting and the intonation, it's a little bit like Link in the old 1980s Legend of Zelda cartoon. He's really like, excuse me, princess, I'm going to heal your grandpa for free. And it's just like, whoa. You're okay. Like, you're a good person, but what's with the attitude, buddy?
Actually, it's a little more interesting because I have it on Japanese dub right now, and he still sounds like he talked about how he's like, well, he came from a bit of a troubled past, so he still has that kind of gruff voice in Japanese. Well, not like gruff, but he speaks in a way that's a little bit more like thug-ish, kind of.
Oh. In English, he sounds like Beck in Mighty Number 9. Like, that's more like it.
Oh my god. No, I just think he's a country bumpkin.
He is a country bumpkin, but that's why I like it. He's a country bumpkin that kind of has like a weird side to him.
I like that he talks about drinking a lot. Because he's a doctor, but he's always hitting the sauce. He's like, yep, after this, can we go get some mead? Because I'm thirsty. And it's like, nice. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, okay. The things he's seen.
Yeah. I mean, if you're out there, like, fighting giant snakes in the wilderness and saving people from death, and you got to like kick back every once in a while because it's exhausting and stressful. Yeah, I find that because again, we don't want to get too deep into like any one story because I don't want to spoil stuff. The game's quite early or quite recent, but I do feel like when I was saying the arcs are kind of predictable, it's like what do you think is going to happen to somebody who wants to become a doctor and resolves to cure anybody no matter what? Like, what do you think is going to happen? You know what I mean? So it's like it follows an arc that you can probably see from a million miles away. But I think that he's a sweet character, and I liked him well enough. He was the first person I picked, so he was in my party the whole game.
All right.
So.
Even with the predictable storylines, I think I've played enough RPGs that even though I've seen this 100 times, it's still good to like seeing it told like the same but different enough way with different characters allows for any perspective of sorts where while I was able to predict the story and be able to go through everything with that, it didn't feel like it was tiresome with everything. Like I play a game like Tokyo Mirage Sessions or Tokyo Xanadu, and they have a bunch of predictable storylines and that too. But I was still able to go through them and finish them because they were done differently enough where I was still able to enjoy all of it in the long run. So,
yeah, I think that's one of the strengths of something like Trails in the Sky or whatever, is that it tells a fairly predictable. I mean, it's not predictable. It's the overall arc can at times be predictable, but the individual moments I think are what make it so interesting. And for me, I think the same thing happens with Octopath. I don't think that any of those story beats are quite as fleshed out as something like Trails in the Sky, but that's because Trails in the Sky has like 8 games now with 1 billion characters, and this is one game focusing on. I mean, 8 characters is like a lot to give the spotlight to that degree, and I think it still manages to give each one of them like the requisite amount of time to develop.
Like each of the Romancing Saga games has 8 protagonists as well, but none of those 3 games give any of those characters the spotlight that Octopath does. And although the narrative is still pretty slight in Octopath, I mean, the writing around it and the dialogue and the character moments are so you can tell that love has gone into them, you know? Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking that I wasn't going to care about Ophelia really, because I was like, okay, you know, she's a goody two shoes cleric, like she'll be fine, but it's whatever. And there was a point in her story where I cried. It was just like, I was so touched because it's a moment. There's a moment that's not necessarily, it's again, something that you may have seen before, but it's just addressed and presented in a way that's pretty touching. And I thought it was very heartfelt, either from the perspective of the original writer or the localization team or whatever. But yeah, I think Octopath is not the deepest game in the entire world in terms of story, but I think that each of its individual stories are strong enough to make up for that. So
yeah, I agree with that.
I really, really love Octopath Traveler. So
I don't think I had any delusions about that.
Yeah, I'm just glad that people like it so much. I'm excited that pretty much every day I open up Twitter and I see new fan art of, you know, people seem to have really taken to Primrose from what I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
And who else have I seen? I've seen a lot of Tressa artwork and stuff, a little bit of Haunted. So yeah, it's a good cast. I don't think there's any one dud in the cast. And I think if there's like a character people like the least or whatever, or it's probably just going to be totally taste. I really don't think that there's one that's terrible. I'm actually kind of curious. I know that Greg, you haven't played it yet, but who is everybody's favorite character? Nathan, who's yours?
Mine might be Primrose, maybe, or Tressa.
Mm-hmm. Interesting duality there.
Yeah, it's amazing because Primrose's story just kind of tugs at the heartstrings a bit, and it makes you kind of feel for her. And then Tressa's just, I just like Tressa's enthusiasm for everything.
Yeah, I feel like Tressa's kind of an Atelier protagonist. Atelier, whatever. That's how she comes across to me, is just like, hooray, the world is nothing but adventure. Which is, you know, it's a mood. So Gino, how about you? Who's your favorite?
Cyrus. Because
He's like a good combo of snarky and charismatic, I think. He's not really that snarky, but
he's not that snarky. But it's at first like the fact he's so haughty and everything about about him being a scholar makes you want to punch him. But then towards the end of his first, when you find out that he has a problem with dealing with women, in a sense, boom. RPG
relatable content.
Okay,
I don't know.
No, RPG protagonist similarity, and that's what I need in that because he's dense when it comes to women. I love that in a protagonist. Plus, he's awesome in battle. So, boom.
Yeah, he's super good in battle. I wasn't using him at first, and then when I switched him into my active party, I was like, why wasn't I using him from the beginning? Oh my god.
Yes, Cyrus is constantly in my party. He's my main along with Haunted because I picked Haunted to start.
Oh, nice. Yeah, he can cover 3 elements with his scholar class, and then if you sub merchant on him, he can cover wind as well. And do some interesting.
Yeah, plus he discovers weaknesses, and I always need that when I'm walking to someone new.
Yeah, that's nice. He was actually, I'll admit, he was the character I was least interested in after doing Chapter 1, because I just felt like his Chapter 1 was like nothing happened in it really. And then after that, I got a lot more interested because of where his story goes. So, Cyrus is great. Fenner, do you have a favorite character? Alfyn, right? Yeah.
I don't hate Alfyn. I like him. It's just the voice acting is just weird. It's complicated. Like I like Primrose quite a bit. I think that the writing around her Chapter 1 is like a little too. It seems a little in bad taste. I picked Therian as my protagonist. I still like him quite a bit. He's a nice, greedy, chaotic neutral who I am role-playing to only steal from total assholes. I'm hearing that I'm shooting myself in the foot because one of my friends is stealing lots of great items that are just, in the possession of children in later towns. But,
yeah, you can even steal from a dog.
Oh, what?
Yeah. I was mad that they programmed that in. I was like, no,
good boy.
We're not doing this.
There's that scrutin. Actually, I don't want to mention that, but let's just say there's one dog that's just labeled "good dog" as their title, and it's really funny.
Yeah,
I saw that dog. Yeah, I saw that on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah.
All good boys.
Yeah, every single one is a good play. And then Greg, you haven't played it, right?
No, I have. That was weird. No, I haven't. I've been interested, though, I would say, oddly enough, in Cyrus, just because he seems to have some cool stuff going on as far as being the scholar. And yeah, I like the aspect of scrutinizing and studying the foe for weaknesses. Mm-hmm. But just Hanek's mechanics of being an alchemist and such sounds really fascinating to me, too, having that whole thing.
Alfyn?
Oh, sorry, Alfyn. Sorry, not Hanek. That's the hunter. Shows that I know. So having that as a thing, as a main character to play with, I find really interesting because you don't see that in a ton of games.
Yeah, you can do a lot of actually weakness, like enemy breaking, using Alfyn's concoct ability because he's got some really good heals available to him, as well as they don't do any damage really. I mean, they do like 2 damage, but you can do things like combine, let's say, like the root for what would cure poison. I forget what element's which, but like there's a root that would normally cure poison, but if you combine that with the injurious seed, which is like an enemy attack item, then it does, like, I'm making this up because I don't remember which one it is. It'll do like ice damage twice to an enemy for barely any damage, but it'll have a chance of doing a status effect, like maybe defense down or something. I know that's wind, but and then also hitting the enemy twice for ice, which could possibly break them. So you have access very early on to a character who's good at breaking every element if you buy the right items. Plus, he has like axe and a bunch of good healing abilities on his own. So
that's pretty neat.
Yeah,
I like the sounds of that.
Mm-hmm. He's a thinker's character, I guess, but not
his base apothecary class can hit really freaking hard towards the end game too.
Yeah, amputation is crazy.
No, not even amputation. Last stand.
Oh yeah.
Last stand at 1 HP plus a skill you get later. Oh, it does so much.
Oh, okay.
I I'm just giving empowering the items like increase HP to him just so I can get last stand hits.
Wait,
Nice.
increasing HP or decreasing?
Increasing HP.
And then
No,
you lower
last stand works if you have less HP, the more damage you do.
Oh no, I mean so just get him to take damage, and then when he's low, and then I'll use it.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, makes sense. And then I guess as for me, my favorites are either I really do like Alphen, and then just in terms of lore, I don't know, because everybody's cool, but in terms of lore, I think I like Honnet and Primrose. Yeah, like Honnet, Primrose, Alphen. And Therion's really great too. I mean, I like them all, damn it. They're all good. So Octopath is a fantastic success, I think, for Square Enix. It's not perfect, but no game is. And I'm glad that they went the sort of no DLC route for this one. They've said that they don't plan on releasing any DLC. The game is complete as it is. And I think that the final optional sort of little epilogue challenge that exists, I call it little. Like, it's little in terms of story, but not in terms of gameplay. There's a lot to fight there. I think that provides enough of a challenge that it's, if people are like really wanting to see more or squeeze more out of the game after they've beaten each of the main character stories, that's where you go. And there are some cool pieces of lore that tie everything together that you get access to while doing that. But I'm glad that the game is sort of complete as it is, and I look forward to them hopefully making more games in the vein of Octopath Traveler, not necessarily like the same engine or the same idea, but they've shown that they can still do a classic turn-based RPG like this and have it be very successful. So,
At least it wasn't Lost Sphere.
I know, right? What a difference. I mean,
Everything
Fenner,
Silicon Studios have put out has been like a throwback that has been transformative. But sorry, I talked over you. You were saying?
Oh, I was going to throw it to you actually because I wanted to.
Oh.
I know how much you love Tokyo RPG Factory.
Oh my God.
I'm just being facetious.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Well, what was the other game though? What else have they put out?
Oh, Silicon Studios?
Yeah.
They put out both the Bravely games and they put out 3D Dot Game Heroes.
Oh, okay.
Bravely in itself is just. I could talk on hours for Bravely, but also I'm actually glad that in Octopath's endgame doesn't give you as much broken character lineups as Bravely Second's endgame, so I'm happy about that too.
It's a little bit more reeled in. Yeah, you don't have all the like super crazy abilities. You do have some fairly out there ones, but
yeah, you can certainly break. I found I haven't played Bravely Second, but Bravely Default, you can definitely break it pretty good. So
Bravely Second has even worse stuff in
dear.
the game. It's even worse than some of the stuff in Bravely Default.
But hopefully worse in a fun way, yeah.
Oh no, definitely in a fun way, but it's man. But
it's one of those things. If you're making an easy game, potentially easy game, like easier, arguably.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get into that, but in the long run, I'm just glad that Octopath is a bit more balanced when it comes to that end game brokenness when it comes to gameplay.
I actually feel like there's quite a bit of restraint in Octopath in terms of design that I really appreciate. So, like whether it's the groundedness of the writing for some of the characters, or like the fact that it doesn't give you, a billion ways to customize your character right off the bat. Like you have your equipment, and then you have your skill points, and each character has their classes, and you know exactly how many abilities each one has, and like I feel like it's balanced and tuned very, very well without being overwhelming, because it is possible for a lot of games to just throw way too much crap at you and give you a billion options and you don't even know how to build your character. Because like Saga games do that, where it's like, I don't know, have fun, figure it out.
Yeah, they tell you nothing.
Yeah, and Octopath is quite a bit more focused in that regard. So
yeah,
beautiful game. I'm so glad it exists, and it's one of probably it was one of my two most anticipated games for the year. The other one being Dragon Quest XI. So it is a good year for RPGs, guys.
Sure it is.
It was one of my three until Kingdom Hearts 3 got delayed. So
yeah, gotta wait. Well, the speaking of, I was going to say there was a lot of discussion surrounding the expectations for Octopath Traveler that I don't really want to get into too much, but I've heard people being like, oh, I was expecting it to be more of this interwoven story and stuff like we had talked about earlier in the show. And I think that in spite of those expectations, Octopath defied them and became a great game anyway. Another game that has a lot of expectations heaped upon it because of the length of the development cycle is one of the earliest Kickstarters I ever remember seeing. It was for Chasm, the procedurally generated sort of like quote unquote Metroidvania style action RPG. And I will call it an action RPG because it does have, numbers whenever you hit enemies. It's very Castlevania Symphony of the Night, down to like a backdash ability and the way that your character kind of feels. So Chasm finally came out after like 5 years in development, right?
Yeah.
Came out this week.
Kind of a big surprise. I didn't know that it was coming at all.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it's looked great, and I've definitely been anticipating. So I'm excited.
Yeah. It's one that I was really eagerly anticipating for a long time, and unfortunately, due to the protracted development cycle, I kind of just forgot about it. And now it's suddenly out. They announced it at the beginning of July, or towards the beginning of July, that it was coming out at the end of the month, and it did. So it's here now. I've played it a bit myself, probably like 3 hours or so, not too much, but Robert Fenner is our resident Chasm expert, as he has just penned a review of the game.
I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but yes, I've played through it, I have reviewed it, and it's okay.
Do you also spelunk on the weekends?
I've been known to delve into holes now and then.
Jesus Christ. So Chasm happened. Speaking of getting into chasms, you played it, reviewed it. It's okay. I share this assessment. I think it is okay from what I have played. Not amazing, but just okay. And I guess I just wanted to get your opinion on what I think is the biggest weakness of the game, and also its most touted feature, which is the procedural generation of each world. There was an article that was on Waypoint that somebody linked to me a couple of days ago, talking about how, I think Patrick Klepek wrote it.
It was Klepek's piece, yeah.
Talking about how the random nature of the world, I think his headline was even something like, the randomness of Chasm's world makes it impossible to know if it's good. And that resonated with me so much, because I was like, yeah, I honestly can't tell if some of the room configurations that I'm getting in this game are like boring, or if it's just my bad roll of the die. Because the way Chasm does it is it has all of these rooms that are handcrafted, but then they're stitched together procedurally. So you'll have like the same beginning and end of every zone. And also, I guess I should say, Chasm is one of those games where like you have a hub town, you go into this dungeon that's different for every player, and you're trying to get to the bottom of it and like fight a boss at the end of each area.
It's static for your save game. The dungeon is generated, and then that's that. It's not mystery dungeon style. It's not Spelunky style. It's like, here, your dungeon is now set. Go into it and play it for 20 hours, a la Castlevania.
Yes. Yeah, that is an important distinction, because it's not like Rogue Legacy where you're going on runs. It's like you said, it's generated for you. They have what's called a seed, and once your file is created, it's static. It won't change in any way throughout your playthrough. If you die, you just have to reload your save or whatever. A nice touch to that is that they added not a hexadecimal or a hash, but it's just like a password for your world seed. And so if you give it to somebody else and they enter that at the game start screen, they'll have exactly the same world as you. So if you want to be able to like replicate a run or something.
Yes, I can't really see the appeal in doing that personally.
Right. That's the thing, is like, that's a wonderful idea, but I don't think that Chasm is interesting enough to play to make me want to do that. Especially because I think the mystery of the game probably comes in through discovery, or like the excitement of the game rather comes through the mystery of discovery. And so to know exactly what you're going to be getting is like, okay. But anyway, I asked you for your opinion, and I just ended up talking a whole bunch. So how do you feel about the way it comes together?
I can't help but be a little bit bummed. I think it's fine. It's, I would even say it's good. It's fun to play. But it's, the world is bland. The moment to moment, while the controls are tight, and there is like a certain kind of like mindless satisfaction to be going through these caves, I just, I was not excited about it in the least. And I was thinking, well, it's early hours yet. Maybe something will, come out of left field and really surprise me. And nothing ever did. it's from the way this game was described in its initial Kickstarter pitch and some of the press around it, and like I don't know if this is fully the game's fault, but I first saw this when it was on Kickstarter, and the impression I got from the Kickstarter pitch was it would be like something like a little bit like a less memey Rogue Legacy, or something like a side-scrolling mystery dungeon, or I don't know, like Spelunky with RPG elements, and it's most definitely not that.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do a game that slavishly replicates the mechanics of Castlevania Symphony of the Night, without being transformative, you've got to do something interesting with, either the setting or the characters or like one key mechanic. And like none of that's really there here. I mean, it's a pretty game and it's fine, but
I'm going for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the visual aesthetic is really the most impressive thing about it.
It's gorgeous, and the monster animations are great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're just like very lavishly detailed pixel art for everything. But I just find that I'm not engaged. Like, it's funny because I could feel my enthusiasm sagging as I was playing the game over the couple of hours that I played it. It was like it went from, oh, I'm so excited, I can't wait to see what's in every room, to like, okay, I'm seeing some of the same stuff. Like, I wonder if there's going to be anything else in any of these rooms. To like,
I found a traversal tool. Now I'm able to get past this wall, and now here's more of the same rooms.
Yeah, and it's so far I've only gotten one traversal tool, and it's the one that lets me like grab onto ledges. And I assume those all go in the same order, right? Like,
they do, yeah.
Yeah, so you get that first, and then something that probably lets you go through the gaps, like crawl or something.
And then you get a wall jump, and then you get a parachute, and then you get a light to go in dark rooms, and then you get a parachute from a dark room.
Okay,
and so forth.
Yeah, and so the ideas are all there, but it's like in practice, because I don't know if like rooms seem like they're too wide. Like they're too spacious, or there's just not enough in any of them, either visually or in terms of mechanics, to keep me excited. Like, yes, there's a slime in this room. Yep, there's another slime in the next room. I mean, just slashing an enemy on my way through a long horizontal space does not engage me. Like there has to be something that either the traversal needs to feel better, or there has to be something more visually interesting, like something. And I don't think that Chasm is terrible at all. Like, it's like you said, I think it's okay. I actually wouldn't go so far as to say it's good. My experience has been a little bit less positive than yours, it seems, but I'm just kind of bored by it. And I didn't want to cut you off if you were making a point just now.
No, please continue.
Okay. Part of the discussion surrounding this game is, unfortunately, its proximity in terms of release schedule to some other truly great games in its vein. And if you want to call them Metroidvania or whatever, that's, it's up to you. So some people really hate the word.
Hollow Knight, and oh my goodness, that game is just bursting with creativity.
It's phenomenal.
Ideas. It is incredible.
It's so good. And I feel like Hollow Knight also released out of nowhere when it did, because I didn't hear any fanfare, and I went months.
It was out like a year ago, and nobody really cared when it was just on Steam. And now, like, people are berserk for it on Switch, myself included.
Yeah, I picked it up I got it in December of 2017, and I want to say I got it like the 30th or 31st, and I've probably said this exact same thing in the podcast before, so sorry. But if I had played it any earlier than like literally the last 2 days of the year, it would have been in my top games of the year, no question. Like top 5 or top 3. It's incredible. It drips with so much like care and exquisite hand polish in every area, and every little facet of the world is so like eloquently designed, or elegantly designed. And that's what I feel like Chasm is missing, because it goes for this, everybody's adventure is different and it's a mystery kind of approach, but it's not an exciting mystery to solve, because all I'm doing is going through like the same boring shapes in a different sequence than somebody else did. And I think that I was talking to Stephen Meyerink about this, and he was saying that his words were more or less, Hollow Knight makes a very strong case for like handcrafted level design. And I would agree with that, because I don't think that Chasm recognizes the importance of that. Like, yes, each room is handcrafted, and that is a step up from it being 100% procedurally generated, but it doesn't work for me very well, and I haven't given up on it, but I'm just not that impressed by Chasm, sadly.
I mean, one of the things that really bummed me, and this probably says something more about me, I was really drawn in by those screenshots of Karthus, the snowy hub town.
Yeah.
And those kind of said to me like, oh, this is going to be like kind of like a lonely, introspective, existential adventure, and it's definitely not that. It is just a hub town.
Yeah, and it's kind of inelegant, I think, in the term, like thematically. I think
really see the strings of these people are just here to, get you to bring back tools so they can provide a service.
Yeah, like it's the potion maker. Got it. Yeah,
which is endemic, I think, about or not endemic. It's just that happens. I feel in a lot of roguelikes when you have the hub, and it's unfortunate that this didn't really get to have more character outside of that. I mean, I'm playing Moonlighter, which is also the roguelike, and it's similar. Most of the characters are just NPCs, and then the other ones are just there to facilitate your quest. There's not a lot of story development with those characters themselves.
Yeah, whereas something like I'm sorry, but in Hollow Knight, everything in the hub town not only has a function, but is like so steeped in lore and exciting mystery. Like, who the hell is this shopkeeper? Like, why does he have a locked basement? What's going on there? And like, why is he kind of creepy and or seeming like he could turn on me kind of thing? Or, what's with all of these insect husks I see on the ground? Or, whatever it may be. And I was drawn in, I think, by that atmosphere and setting of that hub town, which is pretty similar. It's not like super robust or anything.
I mean, I'm not usually bothered by the fact that roguelikes have like very slight storytelling and not really not like a whole lot of character development. But I mean, I think the difference here is that like with something like, I don't know, Enter the Gungeon or Binding of Isaac, you just, you jump in and you do your run, you die, and then you do a run again. And they're like these discrete little short experiences. Whereas Chasm, it's like, a 20-hour campaign.
Right. And it's created, like, each one is unique, but it's not like a jump in, jump out kind of experience.
It's, build your character up over this long period, not like, not so much learn from your mistakes and start from zero, but with knowledge. I don't know. It's just,
Yeah, I don't know. I think it somehow doesn't. Well, I was talking about expectation in the first place, and it's typically unfair to judge a game based on expectation, just because everybody's expectations vary, and perhaps we're projecting something that we thought we would get or something that we wanted that was never promised or whatever. And I mean, I'm certainly guilty of it. I expect things all the time and I project those expectations. So I'm not saying I don't do it. It's just, if we're going to talk about Chasm in that context, like, I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't what I got. So, I don't know. It's just, I don't feel like Chasm has an extremely strong identity
it really doesn't.
Sort of in like a market saturated with games like it. And also a point that I've seen repeated is I didn't think of this, other people brought this up on Twitter, etc., was that when Chasm was announced, we were starving for games like that.
Oh yeah.
And now they're everywhere, and they've been done so well. So many of them have been, that it's kind of hard to look at Chasm as anything but a little bit of like if you would have released this several years ago via your initial projected timeline, then maybe it would have made more of a splash. And I don't begrudge them for like having lives or whatever the circumstances were surrounding development. I know it was fairly fraught, so it's out and they should be proud of that. It's just like, it doesn't set my world on fire. So
they've obviously worked hard and they've done some heavy lifting, making it all come together in the way that it did. I just think I've said this time and time again. If you're going to do something that draws on past classics or bygone genres, I think you need to do something that's transformative. And I don't think Chasm is quite transformative enough. But I do think they can probably, with a little bit more ingenuity, like put something out really special. Maybe next time.
I can see that because they have the talent to do it. I just think that what they executed wasn't as engaging as it could have been.
I'm sure plenty of people are pretty happy with it, and
Right.
that's great.
Would you give it a 75?
Yeah.
So it's fine.
I think that is a fine score.
Yep. It's
Agreed.
a fine game.
It sounds like a good game worth playing.
Yeah. And I'm still looking forward to your final take on Moonlighter there, Greg.
I'm getting closer.
Yeah, I want to know about that.
I've gotten further in now from when we last spoke. They also released one update recently as well. So now there's a few changes to the quality of life. Also, like your player character gets like the armor actually changes as you add to that stuff too, which is a fun feature that I always like in games.
Me too. I love that actually.
Right? And so they're just kind of added some nice stuff to kind of spruce things up, and it sounds like they have more going on as the game is going to progress planned out, which is great. Because like I was reflecting with my partner yesterday about the fact that I was like, how am I expected to play anything new when games like No Man's Sky and Monster Hunter World and this game, like they all are coming out with these sweet free updates that make me want to go back and play them instead of like taking on anything new. Like I'm never going to have any new time to play anything new because developers are making their old games still rad.
Right, and then like the nature of some of those games, something like No Man's Sky in particular, is just sort of like that it is infinite.
Well,
and
exactly.
You can just keep playing it and keep playing it.
And
weren't you playing that, Robert?
What, Moonlighter?
No, No Man's Sky.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I'm losing my mind here. Yes, I have been playing No Man's Sky, and I've just had to I've just found that I needed to restart my save just now. Because if you join in a friend's game who's built a base and you haven't built a base yet, the game is convinced that you have built a base, and it just tells you to get on with things, but you never ever actually get the blueprints to do so.
That's weird.
So yeah, that's me. I was hoisted by my own wacky, slow, low dogfighting petard. So it was four of us, just like as slow as we could, taking pot shots at a sentinel as close to the ground as we possibly could. It was a wild scene, let me tell you.
But did you have fun?
Oh yeah, incredibly broken fun. I think one of my friends ended up like deleting corridors in another one of my friend's frigates, and so there was just space in the middle of a spaceship, and it all seems broken and wrong, and I like it.
I really hope that you renamed the ship the Space Ship.
Ooh.
Yeah, that would be good. It's actually called the Goku Vegeta, I'll have you know. But
of course it is. And then its sister ship, the SS Piccolo.
I don't know. It's a game I want to get back to too. And with all these games, with the new fun content that's coming out, it's just it's just an exciting thing to get into.
Too many games.
And it's great to have games like Octopath, like you said, where it's just like, nope, we're done. That's what it is. You've got your experience, and like you're not gonna go to your shelf and read a book, and then suddenly the author's gonna be like, "But I've added like 3 more chapters that you should buy now." And you're like, "But I want
DLC.
That. I know more."
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not against extending experiences that I enjoy. It's just, DLC can be such a pitfall, and it's so easy for it to go awry and to either gate stuff that should have been there in the first place, or to like completely like undo the narrative or the thematic impact of something that happens in a story. Like it's tricky. So it depends on how it's done. Yeah, which is why something like, Xenoblade 2's expansion comes out next month at this point, and
it's fast.
It is. It feels like it. It's going to be close to a year since the game originally released. I've talked about how I'm not the ultimate fan of Xenoblade 2. If only Caitlin were here. I think that the series peaked with Xenoblade 1, and because Xenoblade 1 is one of my most favorite games ever, blah, 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 blah. But I do think that the choice that they made for Xenoblade 2's narrative DLC works. I would actually much rather play like a story that's like spatially and temporally removed from the rest of the game than to like play an epilogue that comes after the fact, just because of how that story comes out. So yeah, I'm also like, I don't love half of the cast, so let me play as different people, please. But anyway, that's coming out pretty soon, so I'm looking forward to actually digging into that. It's just isn't Valkyria 4 also coming out in September, or is that like later on?
It is on the same day as Dragon Quest.
Not the same day. It'll probably come on the 20s.
Okay. But we've got Valkyria, Dragon Quest, and Xenoblade 2 all in the same month.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it's a few weeks later.
Xenoblade comes out 4 days before Valkyria Chronicles.
Okay. At least they're not on the same day.
Lots
But
of RPG stuff to do.
Some stuff is coming out on the same day as Dragon
isn't
Quest.
Spider-Man coming out the same day as Dragon Quest?
That's not 3 days later.
Okay, good. Because I remember hearing early on that those were really close, and I'm worried about that.
September's pretty crazy with stuff.
Calm down, developers. Calm down. Well.
Oh yeah, it's 4/28 coming out on the same day as Dragon Quest. Oh boy, I'm gonna have to buy both. No.
Shibuya Scramble.
That's right.
Kids are going back to school. How are they expected to play these things?
All right.
That's the question I ask myself all through high school.
Yeah. How do I find the time? You become an adult, and then you have enough disposable income to buy the games, but not the time to play them. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Eternal struggle.
Even the having disposable income thing is a stretch.
Exactly.
Capitalism. Whew.
Take your battles.
Yeah. So before we jump into future stuff too much, I want to delve into the backlog. I want to delve so deep I go into the abyss. And have an entire operation around it.
Is this going to be a My Rank level segue?
This got away from me, but I want to talk about a game that I thought was garbage butt sauce, and that's Operation Abyss: New Tokyo Legacy. And for some reason, Robert Fenner is playing it, so have fun.
I think it's because I hate myself. So, as I said at the top of this podcast before we started recording, I wanted to play The Lost Child, but I thought, am I going to pay $60 for this game that's just not going to be that great? I probably shouldn't do that. But I'd already beaten Stranger of Sword City, which I reviewed for the site maybe 2 years ago. And I thought, well, I've got that Operation Abyss game that I didn't like and that Derek really didn't like. What if I got into that? And 20 hours later, I am gazing into the abyss, and the abyss is gazing into me. But
have you made yourself a GeoCities fan page yet? Are you that into it?
Oh wow, that's a deep cut. No, not yet. But maybe I will. Maybe what's NeoCities? Is that a thing?
Ooh,
the new GeoCities.
Yeah.
GeoSeeker?
New Age.
Oh, is it the New Age one? No.
Yeah, I'll make a reset era thread about. No, I won't do any of that.
You could write a Hardcore Gaming 101 article about it, because apparently you do that sometimes. What the hell?
I've done that a few times, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Wow.
I swear to God, I was on Hardcore Gaming 101, and I was reading, it's a rabbit hole, so you click on one page, and then you end up with 12 tabs open. And I was reading about Lennis 2, the sequel to Paladin's Quest, as it's known.
Boogaloo. Yeah.
What the hell? And I read this whole article, was thinking about it all night, and then the next day I go to link it to somebody else, and I see the author, and it's none other than Robert Stinky Boy Fenner in the flesh.
I'm pleased you were thinking of this stinky boy late at night.
Always. But what the hell? Anyway, sorry.
I wrote the Paladin's Quest 1 article as well too.
So you did.
Plug. I'm in their latest book actually, NES Cult Classics.
Ooh, nice. I'm gonna get that.
I have a piece on Faria Game Arts, the early Game Arts RPG. So
I don't know what that is actually.
Yeah, that is Takeshi Miyagi, the creator of Lunar and Grandia, the late Takeshi.
Huh.
Sorry. Which is weird and gender bending. So
okay.
Think about that.
Cool.
Anyway, that's not Tokyo. What is this game called again? Operation Abyss. Tokyo Rumble? No. New Tokyo Legacy. Oh, hey Boris. You've played this. I've played this. It's kind of like a bargain basement SMT about a bunch of high school students who are in a secret squad who I think it's actually a wizardry spinoff, the weird Japanese wizardry games that Experience put out. It's one of those, it's obtuse, it's hostile, but aside from its weird kind of Moe-esque aesthetic, it's not that different from Stranger of Sword City. It's not as interesting, but it is scratching an itch for me. And I'm breaking out in hives as well because this game's its UI and its menus are such a mess that you can't really. there's like, I don't know if I'm stupid, but there's like a scan enemy technique that doesn't seem to do anything. You can accidentally use a heal spell when everybody has full health, and it will say like the spell failed, but it will still take that MP away from you.
Oh yeah, that game is full of stuff like that.
You can't compare the items in your inventory to what, like, you can't automatically compare to what you're equipped with to what you're going to buy or build. You have to keep going back and forth between two windows, and it's just like I don't really know why I'm doing this. And then like I get to a segment where a man in a feather boa says, "Hey, you lick my legs," and I said, "Yes, I will." And then it like dropped all of my party's morale, and they all got mad at me for doing that. And I thought like, well, there's something here. There's definitely something here.
It's definitely out there. I'll say that. When I was playing it, I was initially interested in kind of the atmosphere, like the main conceit of the game, which was like exploring this sort of seedy, I don't know what I would call it. It's not like the underworld. I mean, you're going through sewers and stuff, right?
Yeah, sewers and like abandoned buildings, and I kind of dig that. Yeah, well, you keep going back through that apartment building all the time. I've been there like 10 times, and each time it gets a little bit darker outside, and like the city lights are a little bit brighter, and I kind of like that. But like I've been here. What's happening?
Yeah. And dimensional rifts and stuff too, right?
Yeah. Which just means like teleporter maze, I guess.
Which, God, I love a teleporter maze. I'm just kidding. I loathe teleporter mazes.
I think I'm just feeling particularly masochistic this season, but I don't want to spend money to do so. So
yeah, that's okay. I mean, it's like, if nothing else, it's amusing and it's an experience, and you're getting further into that. You'll probably get further than I did.
Yeah,
before finishing the review. So
who knows? It has held my attention. I made a Twitter meme. The guy with the two girls with Octopath Traveler on my arm and Operation Abyss walking down the street. And I can't really explain why this is happening, but it is something that's happening, and maybe I'll be satisfied at the end of it, or maybe I'll give up very soon. I don't know, but it seems to be holding my attention at the moment, and I can't really explain why.
Well, I mean, as long as you're being entertained, is it not entertainment?
I'm not being entertained.
What the hell are you doing?
Is it train wreck effect? A train wreck effect? You just can't look away from the horror that is before you.
It's not even that. It's like it's playable, and it's helping me get ready for bed.
It exhausts you, is what I'm hearing.
Okay, that's a way to read it. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I think it's a little bit more. I think it is a little bit more entertaining than I had first given it credit for, but I can't dispute your review.
Well, thanks. I think you heard it here first, kids. Forget melatonin. Operation Abyss, New Tokyo Legacy is all you need for a good night's sleep. Chamomile, pshaw.
Warm milk. Get out of here.
And if you're feeling even more masochistic than Robert Finner, you can go on to the second game in this series, which is, I don't even remember what it's called, Operation something else, right?
Operation Babel.
Operation Babel. New Tokyo something Legacy still?
Probably so.
Something like that. I when I saw media for that way back when, actually that wasn't
the same game.
Yeah, it looks identical. I thought it was the same game. When I saw stuff for it, I was like, what? Oh, didn't that already come out? It must be a different platform or something. No, it's definitely a sequel.
Yeah.
I think that's just an instance of asset reuse for maximum profit right there.
It must be. However, just before we move off this, I am excited to see that Experience's like weird horror adventure Deathmark is getting a release in 2019.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
That looks cool.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to be on Switch as well, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, which is an unexpected platform for that, I would say. But.
So that's giving me hold on before you run away. It's giving me vibes of Tokyo Twilight Ghost Hunters, but without combat and without the homophobia.
Oh, good. So I would actually enjoy it.
cool art and adventure game elements rather than extremely frustrating. Here's some weird sort of tabletop analog. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the combat in Tokyo Twilight Ghost Hunters is just like, can you call it combat? It's like, why don't you guess at where your enemy's going to be and just swing there for fun?
Yeah, that's not my idea of a good time.
Yeah, that's another one I wasn't very fond of. I guess games,
pretty bad.
Mid to low budget games with Tokyo in the title didn't fare so well in the, I don't know, 2013 to 2016 era whenever I played both of those games.
Bad decade for them, along with Tokyo Xanadu.
True, right? Yeah, that's but Gino likes Tokyo Xanadu, right?
Yeah, I do like Tokyo Xanadu.
So we don't want to be too mean here.
Hey, there's Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which is great.
Yeah, I will hold my tongue on Tokyo Mirage Sessions, which I know is held in quite high esteem.
That's fair.
By this panel.
No, I think I totally get where you're coming from, Fenner, in terms of Tokyo Mirage Sessions, because I've talked about how like the idol industry is super gross and toxic and like manipulative and exploitative and like borderline evil in some ways. But the game sure makes it seem like capitalism and exploiting youth is fun. No, I just think that it's just a really fun RPG, and I find the music very catchy and like it's bright and colorful and fun, and hides all of the evils that its subject matter is trying to play off of. So
I will say I do understand why people do not like Tokyo Xanadu, but my bar is a little lower than a lot of people's when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Gotcha. So. Yeah. Well, it certainly gives you a lot of bang for your buck because that game just keeps going.
Really I just want to actually, before Octopath came out, I was trying to 100% that game, but I missed a couple profiles from an earlier thing, so I just lost. So I went back to like halfway through the game, and now I just lost half my progress for the game.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
that's some dedication to Falcom's baloney.
I know, seriously.
Yeah, there's like, you have to talk to this specific character at this specific point to get item number 3 in their profile. Otherwise, you can never get. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Oh boy. Well. Today's been a good mix of new and old, so I just wanted to shout out a couple of features on the site before we leave you. We recently had a new features editor come on, Tina Ola, and she has penned her first major feature. It is called Adventures on the Side, Guidelines for RPG Side Quests. It is a really neat article that goes into some... it's basically just like her critique of video game side quest design, and her little byline is, it's an examination of unfortunate, overwhelming, and mediocre side quests in linear RPGs featuring I Am Setsuna and Xenoblade Chronicles. So if either of those games have either peeved you in some way in terms of their side quest design, or if you just like the games, probably worth reading the article. It's worth reading the article anyway.
Yeah.
It's well written and fun. And I think she points out a couple of very salient things about the way that those games handle their side quests that I remember being like, oh, why didn't I think to write a piece on this? So very well done piece. Go check that out. You can access it via the RPG Fan main page. It's currently on the sidebar on the right towards the bottom, but it may be gone by the time you hear this episode. So just head on up to the main page, go to features in the top link bar and click Adventures on the Side. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is that our sister podcast, which has vastly overtaken us in terms of output, Retro Encounter, hosted by Mike Solosi, is coming up on episode 150. And so are we, actually. We're only one episode away from that ourselves. So they are soliciting feedback for their next episode. Excuse me. Mike Solosi is looking to collect listener emails. You can send them to retro@rpgfan.com with a question or suggestion about the show. And he said that he will definitely respond to them on the air so long as the emails are received by August 18th and they aren't hateful or hostile. So that's retro@rpgfan.com if you want to send them anything and give them a shout out, say how much you like them, say how you're a dedicated listener of Random Encounter and that they're heathen scum, or you can just be nice. With that being said, we're going to sign off here today. So if you have questions, comments, or spare potions, you can email us at podcast@rpgfan.com. You can also follow us on Twitter @RPGFancom and like our Facebook page at facebook.com/RPGFancom. Subscribing to us on iTunes or through the RSS feed would be cool. Still haven't gotten that review yet, so I'm waiting for it. Whoever you are, please do that. I would appreciate some nice words. Or if you have to, not as nice words, but that's not very nice. So don't do that. So thanks for tuning in. You've been listening to me, Greg, Nathan, Gino, and Fenner. So thanks for hearing us, and we will see you all later.